Hey guys, welcome to episode 408 of Hillbilly Horror Stories. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Tracy. First off, we want to say Happy Father's Day.
Yes, happy Father's Day.
To all you lovely daddies out there. We appreciate you all so much, and I hope y'all had a great day.
Yes. Then we want to say a big thank you to all of our military and civil servants all over the world, no matter which country you represent. Thanks to all you men, women, and service animals for everything you do on a regular basis for us.
Yes, we love you guys so much. We pray for you every day. And keep on keeping on, watching our backs and making us feel safe every day.
Tracy, as I often remind people, depression is one of those things that really likes to creep in on holidays such as today.
Yes.
Especially if, you don't have a father anymore, or maybe you just lost a grandparent, something like that, a grandfather. It's just, these days, it really just comes home extra hard. I know you even put a post up of your father last night, and talked about how, you miss him every single day. And, I'm lucky that I still have my father with me. And, but, not everybody does. And it makes it really tough. And sometimes that weighs on you.
It does, for sure. It was weighing on me really hard yesterday. And, I think of my dad every single day. But it just, I don't know, my heart hurts so bad that he's not with us anymore. So, just hold on to the memories and all that good stuff. That's what I do. But it is tough. It's tough to get through at times.
But the key thing is that's okay. It's okay to struggle in times like this. It's okay to be down when everybody else is happy, because sometimes that's just what works for you. But there's nothing wrong with that. If you've lost a father, Father's Day is going to be tough, and that's fine. That's okay. But just know that brighter days are ahead.
Of course.
So, and if you need to talk to somebody, please talk to somebody. You're not alone. And no matter what you can tell somebody, they've been through it too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You guys can reach out to the group, which we love so much. You can reach out to Jerry and I, and you can also call the crisis hotline at 988, text 741-741. If you need to talk, we're here for you guys. Just never forget.
Absolutely. All right. So, first of all, before I get into this week's story, we've got Ashlie, the ghost story girl. We had a chance to meet her down in Casadega when we did the live event. She's got a very cool Instagram page. She's a paranormal investigator, so she shares some really cool stories with us at the end of this episode. But let me say this. Last week we did a show on parallel universes. And I think I may have been in a parallel universe. Because what happened? I said, this is a subject that we've not really dealt with on this show before. We literally did a show on parallel universes a year ago.
I thought we had, honestly.
And I don't know. And now keep in mind, it was literally right after my hospital stay.
Yeah.
It was one of the first episodes we did after my stint in the hospital. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but I died for a little bit. But during that time, I didn't exactly have my full mental capacity.
No, he did not.
And I think that's why I don't remember it. But I mean, it literally was a year and 2 months ago, and I didn't remember doing it at all.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, I went back and listened to it, and we didn't do any of the same stories
for the
last week. But it just amazed me that I went on about how we hadn't done it, and we'd done it, If it had been 6 years ago, I might have given myself a pass. This was a year ago.
Well, hell, I can't remember a year ago. I can't remember last week's story.
This is true, but I just told you it was parallel universes.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying. on a normal thing. That's okay, honey.
All right, so as promised last week, we're going to cover some time slip stories. Now, I did remember that we did do some time slip stories a couple years ago, so that one I did know that we had covered. And I'm not going to break down about, last week I did a bunch of breaking down about the difference between the time slips and stuff. There's no need to do that this week. You can go back and listen to that one if you need to. So we're going to jump straight into our first story tonight. We're going back to October 2022, so not that long ago. But long enough for me to forget what would have happened if we'd have recorded it already. It was late in the afternoon. Emily and Michael, they were taking a nice little drive. They'd been together for about 5 years, and that is the one thing that they enjoyed doing most, was just taking long drives. So they're driving along a highway in Pennsylvania. They're just north of Philadelphia, near the New Jersey border. So picture this. They're cruising along the highway, probably got on some nice tunes, maybe some AC/DC. That's what we like to do while we're driving.
You know that's right.
They look over on the left side of the road. There's a big group of trees, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They could see these trees coming up from a distance. Now, there was enough trees that you couldn't see what was past them, okay?
Okay.
So they see the trees coming, but they can't see anything past. The trees then started to get less dense, and Emily could see a strip mall. She said the parking lot was damn near empty.
Well, that's not a good sign for them.
No, it's not. Unless it was like after hours or something.
Oh, that's true.
Now, some of the shops had neon signs. Then, just like when you're driving and looking on the side of the road, there were more trees. So there were trees, then the trees dissipated. They saw some stuff, and then there was more trees. So it kind of blocked their view. This is where it gets funny, though. The trees disappeared, and there was a strip mall again. But this time it was completely different. It was the same strip mall, but the parking lot was almost completely full. All the cars were the more boxy type of cars that you would have seen in the 1980s and 1990s.
Wow.
Now remember, this was just 2 years ago. So the modern shopping center that she had witnessed just seconds ago was now an older, more run-down shopping center. And like I said, when you're driving and you see trees and then they disappear, I mean, you're talking maybe, 5 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
6 seconds of drive time?
Yeah, real quick.
On this version of the shopping center, there were no neon signs. Part of the facade on some of the building was looking as if it was undergoing some renovation. There was scaffolding and construction, and, they had the fencing and stuff around it. So it's obviously they were doing some kind of work. Emily blinked, trying to process what she had just seen. The vision lasted only a few seconds. So all this was maybe 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Everything then blended back to the newer shopping center that they saw the first time.
Did he see it too? Or just her?
Well, we're getting to that. She was questioning what happened. She was completely lost. So she turned to Michael and she explained what she had just seen. She was surprised to find out that Michael had seen the exact same thing at the same moment.
Wow. That's unusual.
He dismissed it and thinks it was just, a trick of the eye. In the days following, though, Emily did some research, and she found out that the facade had been updated in the late 1990s. So there was renovation that took place.
Yeah.
So what they saw, in a sense, was they saw the modern day version, and then they saw the old version where they had started to do the renovations and stuff in the 90s. That's why there was renovations being done. That's why the cars all looked that way. And then it went back to the new version.
That is crazy.
So there's a good, quick little time slip story for you. They just...
Too bad it couldn't have been the 1990s prices.
Yeah, no kidding. Like going to places that didn't exist anymore, like merry-go-round and
Oh, yeah.
the record stores and stuff that don't exist. All right, this next story takes place in Staffordshire, England. I gotta make sure I pronounce that right, because I would say Staffordshire, but it's Staffordshire.
Okay.
My English people get on me when I don't pronounce those right. This happened in 1978. 15-year-old Maggie Eisen and a few of her friends decided they were going to take a nice little leisurely walk along the riverbank. It was Maggie, her friend Stephanie, who was also 15, and two boys, James, who was 17, and William, who was 18. They weren't going anywhere, particular. They just 4 teens out doing a walk, killing some time. But Tracy, it was a little warmer outside than what they had anticipated. So they got a little bit, hot walking around. They decided they were going to duck into some woods and cool off a little bit. They had no clue that this was going to start them on an adventure that they would never forget.
Whoa.
So the group came out of the woods. There was kind of a clearing right there. There, right in front of them, was this old stone public house. Or a bar, more or less.
So they went in the woods, and then they went out of the woods and saw that.
Yeah, they went to a clearing.
Okay.
And there it was. This big stone public house, which is a pub. That's where the term pub came from.
Pub came from, yeah.
There's a bench sitting outside, so they decided, look, we're just going to sit here and rest for a little bit. And then they started looking at how odd the building was. It was like nothing they had ever seen before. It was completely stone, and it had a low thatch roof on it. No building in that area had a thatched roof. So they counted their money, and they decided that they had enough change to be able to go in and at least buy a drink or two.
Mm-hmm.
So as they walk in, Maggie was surprised at the very unique atmosphere within this bar. The floor was completely wood planked, and it was creaking every time they would take a step on it. The windows had really small window panes. The whole inside had almost a greenish haze about it, is how they described it. There were 2 men sitting on a crude bench beside a wooden table.
What's a crude bench?
It's just like it wouldn't really nicely created and polished. It was just kind of like makeshift.
Oh.
So it's like, it probably hadn't been all sanded down and everything. It was just whatever they could do to make a bench.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She said they seemed to be lost in their thought. So they wouldn't paying the teenagers any attention. There was an old man with a pipe. He was sitting next to a huge fireplace. What was even more strange is the fact that there was a roaring fire in the fireplace, despite the fact that it was extremely hot outside.
They were like, dang, man, this ain't outside sweating, inside sweating.
Well, that's how they get you at these bars. They make it hot so you get thirsty.
Oh, well, there you go.
Thought. All of these people seem to be wearing old-fashioned clothes. Maggie found them to be peculiar, to say the least, but she also found herself drawn to the bar. James and William, they were already up at the bar and they were trying to place their order. The bartender, so we'll call him, seemed to be wearing some type of a tunic. The 2 boys are up there. They're asking for a drink, but the bartender looked completely dazed, like he couldn't understand what they were asking for. What they had requested was a beer and a lemonade. He just stood there with his mouth open. John then pointed to a cask that they had up there, which is like a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And that should tell you something right there. They got one little barrel sitting up on the bartender.
And they're not legal enough to drink anyway.
Well, they might have been back in England in the 80s.
Oh, I guess that's true.
I mean, 1979. So they point to this barrel, and they asked for 4 ciders instead, because apparently that had some type of a cider in it. The bartender still seemed confused, but he reached up and he grabbed 4 of these battered pewter cups. They were hanging right above his head. He poured the cider in each one of the cups. And when they asked him about the cost, he just shook his head and he waved them away.
Well, that's lucky.
Yeah. This cider was extremely strong.
Had it hardened, turned into...
Yeah. They said it was so strong it was surely illegal for their ages.
Mm-hmm.
So they quickly finished their drinks. They put the cups on the bar and they said their goodbyes. Maggie looks back and she said, none of the patrons ever acknowledged their presence, nor did any of them make eye contact.
I think that would freak me out a little bit.
The pub itself was pretty basic. It just consisted of 1 or 2 rooms. And despite the strangeness of the situation, The group felt refreshed, and they were ready to begin walking again, and they started their journey home. Now, the following week, Maggie and her friends decided to go back to the bar. I guess so, they got free cider. Why wouldn't they? They walked for miles, almost to the next town, and they couldn't find a trace of or even the clearing in the woods where this pub was. So they couldn't find the pub, they couldn't find the clearing. They came back several weekends in a row looking for any sign of this building, but there was nothing that showed them that bar ever existed in the woods.
How cool, though, to get to experience that. Even though it's like, what's wrong with me?
Well, Maggie decided to do some research. So she went to the local library and she started looking on some old maps, but that didn't turn up any results. It's now been over 45 years since that happened, but Maggie says it seems like it was yesterday. So here's a theory, Tracy. That pub with a low thatched roof, thick wooden beams, the wooden floors like they had, the pewter cups. Remember I mentioned they had pewter cups?
Uh-huh.
And the patrons dressed in cloaks and tunics might originated from the Tudor era or maybe even the Stuart era. Now, that would be sometime between the 15th and the 17th century.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because all those things, that type of clothing and stuff like that, it would have been from that time era.
Yeah.
Time period, I should say.
Oh, my gosh. It's pretty cool that they all got to experience that together. And, it was not just like one person thinking they'd seen it and nobody else did.
Yeah, that's the stories that I find most interesting because, like I said, they had 4 people here that saw the same thing. You had 2 people that saw the same thing in the last story.
Yeah.
Then we had the stories with the time warps last week. I mean, you had a mother-daughter walking through a cemetery that saw the same thing. So it was just a bunch of, the mother-daughter going to the wedding.
Yeah,
They both thought the same date. So when you have multiple people doing it, there's got to be more to. Now, some people will tell you it's a case of mass hysteria or something like that. But I don't know. It's just, it's crazy. All right, I got a different kind of time slip story for you guys right after this quick sponsor break. So this story is somewhat heartwarming, I think. We've all wanted to kind of relive some past memories, just like we were talking about earlier with our fathers that aren't with us some. And past memories are kind of what this story entails. This story is from John. He is a grocery delivery clerk in Nebraska. He's been doing this job for about 15 years. So he's met a lot of people over the year and had some regular customers that you get to know. Well, this story deals with one of his regular customers, the Wilson family. The Wilsons had used the store's delivery service for as long as John had been with the company and from apparently years even before that. At least once a week, sometimes twice a week, he would come to the house to drop off groceries. The woman in the house, her name was Maria, her husband was Tex. John said that he wasn't really sure if Tex was his real name, but he was a real modern-day cowboy. He wore the whole get-up, and he always addressed John as cowboy. He said as he would see John coming up the driveway, he'd just look at him and he would say, "Morning, cowboy," or "Catch you later, cowboy," as he would leave. So it's such a pattern, he was just used to it. Tex would always say these things as he would bring 2 fingers up to his head as if a real cowboy would if he was tipping his hat.
Oh.
So John would always return the gesture and, bring 2 fingers up to his head. They really bonded over the years, and they sometimes would get in these really long, deep conversations. Tex was an extremely nice guy. And of course, John knew that he didn't have the healthiest of diet because he was the one delivering their groceries. So,
right, so he knew what they were eating.
A lot of bacon, a lot of sausage, a lot of steak, that type of stuff. Sadly, about 5 years after John had started delivering to the family, Tex passed away. John said he wasn't ashamed to admit that he shed a few tears that night when he got the news. He even had a drink in honor of Tex. Well, Marie kept on ordering after that, so John still kept up with the family. For the last 10 years, he's still been dropping by the house at least once or twice a week. a lot can change over 10 years, Tracy. John watched their 2 young sons grow into teenagers. Their home changed with the times as far as like furniture and decor, that type of stuff. And over the years, Marie sold Tex's beloved car, a beautiful, completely restored 1964 Camaro.
Wow. You would love that.
I would. Marie eventually remarried to a gentleman by the name of Phil. After Marie remarried, the amount of deliveries went up as they needed more groceries because of the extra person and the growing children. Teenagers do eat the hell out of some stuff. But one day, something very strange happened on one of these, what should have been regular deliveries. When John arrived at the house, Tex's Camaro was sitting in the driveway. So John first assumed that Marie must have tracked down the buyer and purchased the car back. Maybe she was feeling nostalgic and wanted Tex's car back. He said it looked exactly the same as it did the years before. Same paint job, everything. So John knocks on the door. Marie answered, but something seemed a little bit off. You see, Marie's face seemed distinctly less wrinkled than he remembered from the last visit. But there's all kinds of skincare products out there that can help with that these days, so he figured maybe she was just using something like that. He definitely didn't bring it up. Good choice, John. John said to her, Miss Wilson, you are positively glowing. He said she blushed a little bit. She thanked him. John then said, I see you got Tex's car back. Marie just kind of laughed and said, why? Did he tell you that we sold it or something? That old thing will be with us until he kicks the bucket.
Uh-oh.
So John was a little confused, but he brushed it off and thinks that, maybe her brain might have lost a little bit over the years with everything that's happened, and she is getting older. But there were more strange things that were about to happen. He noticed that the decor of the house was closer to what it had been years ago. There were old pictures of the boys up on the walls. Pictures of when they were much younger. The same with the furniture. It was like the stuff that they had in the past. John was thinking that, you know what? Maybe she dumped Phil and, this had some kind of a mental breakdown and she started reverting back to the way things used to be. Was she maybe trying to relive the old days back when she was with Tex? Well, obviously he didn't ask that question either. He walked into the kitchen to put down the groceries. At the table, eating breakfast, were Marie's 2 sons. But they weren't teenagers. They were very young boys. They looked just like her boys' pictures on the wall. He felt like this was impossible. They must be her nephews or something, or maybe she's just babysitting for a neighbor. But they looked so much like the younger versions of her kids, he was kind of taken aback. John was a little bit freaked out, so he puts the groceries down and he made his way to the door, not even stopping to talk to Marie. Well, Marie sees this and she said, leaving so quickly? Well, John replied, yeah, I'm kind of in a rush today, a little busier than normal. John got to the front door, which was still open, by the way, and something made him stop. He couldn't really describe the feeling, but he said he knew he had to turn and look over his right shoulder into the living room that was behind him. Sitting there in his armchair was Tex. Tex said, catch you next time, cowboy. And then he raised 2 fingers to his head.
Oh, man.
A strange feeling came over John. Not fear, but warmth. He gave Tex a little smile and raised his 2 fingers toward his forehead, and John then walked out the front door and he made sure he closed the door behind him. But as he turned around and faced the driveway, the only car there was John's. Nothing seemed out of place at all now. Everything was completely back to normal. And he said he's made several deliveries to that house since then, and nothing out of the ordinary has ever happened since. He'd never brought the incident up to her because he felt like that she might even think that he was making fun of her or disrespecting Tex's memory.
Whew. That is wild.
It's extremely wild.
But how cool was that, though? It's like you got one more chance to see Tex and things. Aw. I wish we could go back like that.
But we don't even know Tex.
Well, I don't care about him, but that would be nice, right?
Yeah, it would be really nice to be able to go back and, you know, visit with somebody, friends or relatives that we've lost along the way.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Maybe one day.
Maybe. Tracy, the stories we've done so far have been about people traveling back in time.
Back in time.
I don't think it's exactly how that goes, but I'll give you an A for effort.
What is it?
It's a little faster than that. You talking about the Huey Lewis song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, ain't that much faster.
Okay. So, this story takes place in Brighton in the UK in 1999. A group of friends stop at a pub off of the Old Stein. That's like a main road there, a thoroughfare, the Old Stein. They were all having a great time. Suddenly, their attention was drawn to an oddly dressed couple who walked into the pub. It was around 9 p.m. The man and woman looked like they were in their late 20s. As they made their way to the bar, their demeanor seemed to say that they were a little confused, maybe even lost. Well, their style of clothes really stood out. They were dressed very, very nice, but their clothes seemed to be more from the 1940s or 1950s.
Yeah.
But this is 99.
Right. That's kind of pretty wild to see what they would think about walking into the future like that.
Right.
It's usually the other way around.
They said the man had on a tailored suit and a fedora. The woman had on a very elegant dress and a hat.
Okay. And in the bar there was biker guys.
As the couple took their seats at a nearby table, they kind of seemed totally captivated by their surroundings. Then their eyes opened widely as they started watching a TV that was playing music videos. Throughout the evening, the couple just jotted down notes in these little small notebooks that they had. They seemed to be paying particular attention to the other patrons' cell phones and modern fashion choices.
Mm-hmm.
The group of friends, which included a gentleman by the name of Owen Hench, he was a 22-year-old college student, they couldn't help but to notice that the couple's unusual behavior really stood out. As the group was about to leave the pub, the woman leaned in and she asked Owen a question. In perfect English, but with a German accent, she asked, "Excuse me. This might seem like a strange question, but what year is this?" Owen was kind of taken aback by the strange question, but he said, "Well, it's 1999. Well, the shock that came to the woman and the man's face was extremely noticeable. She said, "Are you sure?" Her voice was kind of trembling. "That it's 1999 and not 1969? Owen just smiled and said, "Nope, it's 1999. So the group exits the bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Owen decides to glance back after they're outside. He looks through the windows, and he said he still caught a glimpse of the couple. They seemed to be deep in the conversation, but they were still had an obviously puzzled expression on their face. Just a level of disbelief."
Can you imagine?
Here's what confused me about the story. And there's still a little bit more of it. But what confused me was it said it looked like they were dressed from the 40s or 50s, but they asked, it's not 1969?
Yeah, I know. I
So
thought about that when you
part was a
said
little
it.
strange. So that even makes me think it's more believable
Yeah.
because of that. Well, anyway, there's some theories on what was going on. You know, Owen says to this day that he thinks that this was 100% legit. But other people say, you know what? Well, maybe it was a prank. Maybe these were some actors in a play. Their play was over. They decided to go out and grab some food. They just stayed in costume. And they thought, let's have some fun with some people. Maybe that's what happened. But like I said, Owen doesn't think so. He said that he would have known if they were acting because it was just too believable of a performance that they put on.
Interesting.
All right. We're going to do one more. This is one of my favorites.
All right.
What do you make a face for?
Oh, I'm not.
You made a face.
I'm not.
So we're going to do one more. And then we're going to listen to Ghost Story Girl. This one's a little shorter than the other ones, but it's a really cool story. This is from July 1996. Frank and his wife were doing a little shopping on Bow Street in Liverpool, England. The two decided they were going to split up a little bit. She wanted to do her thing. He wanted to do his thing. So Frank wanted to go to Dylan's bookshop. As you walk up the incline near the Lacerum post office building that leads into Bow Street, it's like a ramp that goes up there, right?
Yeah.
Well, Frank noticed that everything went quiet when he stepped up on that ramp. Then a small box truck that looked like something out of the 1950s sped past him and honked his horn and barely missed him. Well, it turns out that Frank was in the street instead of being on that ramp. He's in the street now.
Oh.
Because apparently as time has went on, back in, I guess, in the 50s, that was a street at that part. The ramp came later.
Oh.
So this truck goes by, this box truck. It looks like it's from the 1950s. And Frank noticed there was a name on the side of the truck, Kaplan's. Well, he looked across the road and he sees that Dylan's bookshop was no longer Dylan's bookshop. It had a sign up over top that said it was Cripps Footwear. Well, he decides to go over there and check the place out. And he looks through the windows, and of course, it's not a bookstore. It's handbags and women's shoes. Now Frank starts paying more attention to his surroundings. Everybody seemed to be dressed in 1950s attire. But then he spotted a young girl. She was in her 20s. She had modern clothes on. He thought, well, this is kind of strange. She's got a handbag that's got a really popular name from the time period, so he thought maybe it was still 1996 and maybe he was hallucinating or something like that. He was still confused, but he was somewhat relieved.
Did he go talk to her?
Well, he follows her into the Cripps store. That's where she went. As soon as he gets into the store, he watches as the interior changed from Cripps to Dylan's bookshop.
Oh, wow. Right in front of his eyes.
This girl turns and starts to leave, and Frank kind of stops her. He grabs her arm a little bit, and he says, "Hey, did you see that?" She said, "Yeah, I thought I was walking into a clothing shop. I was going to look around, but now it's a bookshop."
So two of them were in that slip?
Apparently.
Oh, they should have got married.
He was already married.
Oh, that's right.
Remember, she was out looking at something else.
Oh, that's right.
So
Wow.
I guess I know what your rules are. As long as you're in a time slip, it's okay to be married to two people.
All right.
So anyways, that's what we got on time slips tonight.
That's crazy. And it's hard to believe that that can really happen.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do believe it can happen because there's too many stories of it out there.
Right.
All right, so we're going to take a quick sponsor break, and then we're going to be back with Ghost Story Girl. All right, Tracy, cruise is coming up.
I know,
I don't even know what else to say on it. It's almost done.
Yeah.
You got to have your payments in by July, and we're ready to be cruising in September. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It's coming up quick.
I think the economy kind of hurt this one a little bit. We're going to have a nice crowd. I don't think it'd be quite as big as the last one, but we're going to have fun.
Heck yeah.
Us and Brohio.
Shoot. They better watch out.
So I hope the Better Have the Casinos put some extra sturdy handles on there.
I'll behave.
So with the next thing we got going on is our live show. It's about half sold out for St. Augustine with History Goes Bump. I can't wait for this show. We're going to get to meet some people we've never met before. So that's going to be a not puss. It'll be a plus. I couldn't decide between plus and bonus, and it came out plus.
Pustules. Oh my!
I always wondered
gross.
how you spell pussy. I mean, think about it. If you spell it like you think it would be
Yeah,
spelled,
that's not.
that's a whole different
Oh,
word.
no, no, no. How, what the heck would you
Maybe
spell?
it's an IE at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pusie?
I don't know. Let's just stop before we get in trouble.
Okay.
Go get your tickets for the live show on Hillbilly. What are we on? HillbillyHorrorStories.com.
True.
You could do that. There's also links to our Patreon if you wanted to leave a financial one-time tip. There's a tip jar on there, virtual tip jar, which I don't think we've mentioned for like a month.
All right. All right.
So anyways, bunch of fun stuff on the website. Go check it out. And now, Tracy, what we got going on? I know it was a slow week on
It was.
reviews.
So, what the crap? No, I'm just kidding. We had Kate Cummins and good old Mojo Lobster. Never lets us down.
No, thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.
There were no Patreons, I don't think, this week, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So if we missed one, we'll catch you next week, but I don't think there was any. So, Tracy, now it's time to listen to Ghost Story Girl.
Ooh.
Hey guys, I'm excited about this next guest. I had a chance to meet her about a month or so ago when Tracy and I did our Casadega show. She was a guest on History Goes Bump. They invited her to the show, and we had a chance to talk for a little bit there. And I've been trying to get her on the show for about a month or so, but she's busy. We're busy. You know how that goes. So first of all, I want to welcome Ashlie from Ghost Story Girl. Ashlie, thanks for coming on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. So let's just jump right into this. You're a paranormal investigator. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, probably since I was about 17, so high school.
So what, like
So
3 years?
that's about it's 20 years next year.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I literally thought you were like mid to late 20s.
Oh, no, no, no.
Okay.
Add 10 onto that.
Well, obviously I cannot work at the carnival. They would go bankrupt if I was trying to guess people's ages. And then I would probably try to guess weight too, and that would not go over well. So, all right, so you've been doing this for a very long time. Let's
Yeah.
start off with this. I always like to ask paranormal investigators, is there a time to where you felt like you bit off a little more than you could chew? You got into a situation, you didn't think it was going to be, too overwhelming. And then when you got into it, something really scared you or something really made you think, oh, this is way more than I thought it was going to be. Do you have one of those experiences?
So actually, it was this past March pretty recently.
Okay.
I was up just outside of Jacksonville. And I visited the Clay County Jail, the old Clay County Jail. It's the second oldest jail in Florida, 1894. And I was lucky enough to have the place to myself completely alone for about 3 or 4 hours during the day. I just kind of showed up, and the archivist said, "Hey, go nuts." And I did my thing. I was hesitant at first to be alone and do EVP sessions because I think when you directly, try to make contact and talk and expect an intelligent answer, you put yourself in a very vulnerable position. So I was hesitant to do that at first. I didn't know any history going in. I did a baseline investigation. Afterwards, I spoke with the archivist and she told me the history and some of the stories of the place. And then she told me that the place is known for EVPs, Class A EVPs. She played me some. It was wild. So I was like, oh, I got to go back in. I got to do an EVP session and see what I can come up with. So I went back in and I went to the cell where I got a very strange impression during my first walkthrough. I even said out loud on camera, I was like, I don't like this one. I don't like this one at all. So of course, that's where I went first for the EVP session.
Of course.
And the archivist, when she played me a recording of her EVP, it was a recording of a man saying straight up out loud, "Shut up." You could hear it. "Shut up," straight out loud. So in my questioning, I asked, "Were you the one who told so-and-so to shut up?" And then after that, I asked, "Were you a prisoner here?" And after I asked, "Were you a prisoner here?" in my line of questioning, you can hear me pause and my voice kind of shakes because I swear I heard something out loud. But the thing that's crazy is when I got home, I didn't hear anything at first after I asked, "Were you the one who told Vichy to shut up?" On playback, you can hear immediately after I ask someone or something or someone saying, I did. And it was wild. I'm sitting in my office 10 p.m. at night with my headphones on, just playing it back, playing it back, playing it back. And you can hear it like clear as day on the headphones. And that kind of gave me goosebumps. Um, After my questioning, though, in that cell for the EVPs, I felt like I needed to leave. I didn't feel like I was welcome anymore during that questioning. It was like, enough, get out, go. And I kind of like hightailed it out of there, back downstairs, out to my car. And I almost forgot to say, goodbye, please stay here. Don't follow me home.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I did. I like kind of popped my head back out of my car and I was like, oh, thank you. Please stay here. Don't follow me. When I got back to the hotel, I was eating dinner in the hotel and I decided just to take a quick little selfie of myself to send to my wife to say, hey, I'm okay. I just like, I'm eating dinner. Took a picture of my food and then I took a picture of myself and I clicked it 2 times. My hands weren't in the air or anything. I sat them on the table in front of me. The first photo of me comes out like smeared blurry. And the second photo is perfectly clear. All I did was like hold the phone directly in front of me on the table and click 2 times. And it was just a very strange coincidence that I was investigating this severely haunted jail all day. And then I get home after, kind of feeling uncomfortable about my questioning and my experience. And then that photo turned out like that. So that kind of made me a bit nervous in my investigating for sure.
So let me ask you this. This is something that I've always been curious about, and I want to hear your opinion of it. And I honestly
Mhm.
don't think I've ever asked another paranormal investigator this. You mentioned, hey, I popped my head in and said, don't follow me.
Mhm.
Why is it, do you think, that spirits are like obligated to listen to that? I mean, is it like an unwritten rule that when you tell them to do something that they just can't do it? I mean, you hear it all the time, and for the most part, I think people believe that it works. I just don't know why that it works. Just like I'm still not convinced on any
I
real reason why saging works.
Right, right. That's a great question. Um, so I think it's an energy thing. I think it's a conscious energy vulnerability within ourselves that you can either be open to it or shut it down. I think in the same way that certain people are more sensitive to picking up on spirits versus others, the more open you are to something and the more you pay attention to something, the more energy you give it. So it's able to kind of communicate and contact you more. So maybe perhaps if you kind of set that boundary and draw that line, more so for us as an indicator or boundary saying, hey, we're not going to be in this mode anymore of focusing on this spirit or this energy. We're not going to be contacting and communicating it. I think it kind of severs the line, so to speak. I'm not sure if it works. Who knows if it really works?
It don't hurt to
It could
try
also
anyway.
depend on the kind of spirit you're talking to as well, right? How much, I don't know. I don't know how much power it has. Who knows? But that would be my theory behind it.
Do you think saging works?
Saging has been scientifically proven to remove bacteria and certain particles in the air. Um, I think that's about it. I don't think it would really work against a spirit personally. I don't see why or how it would. Um, Ancient cultures believed it did, but that could just be because it scientifically improved air quality. And then people started feeling better from whatever malady they had, whatever sickness or headache they had, because it sort of cleared the air, in that capacity, it could be true. I don't think in a paranormal level, it would really have any standing.
It's also great in stovetop stuffing. Just saying.
Delicious. Effective and delicious.
So tell me about a time where you were able to really help somebody out. Because I'm sure you had encounters to where somebody's like, "Hey, I got this crazy thing going on in my house. It's something that's causing us all kinds of issues." Where you were able to go in and maybe give them some clarity or something along that lines to help the situation out. Do you have one of those stories?
May have, I actually don't. I don't have a story like that. I'm
Well, not
sorry.
everybody does. That's why I said, do you have one? Because like I said, sometimes paranormal investigators, they got two different modes. They have their mode where, hey, I'm just trying to go find what's out there. And then
Hmm.
there's other paranormal investigators that devote their whole time to trying to help people out that are struggling with something. And so it doesn't apply to everyone, obviously.
Right. I take more of the investigation approach. Like, I'm more of a skeptic myself.
Hmm.
So really figuring out like why is our equipment being affected? What could it be? What is the history of the place? Doing a deep dive into that. Taking an ethnographic approach where you interview people who've had experiences there, tying that all together and then forming my own opinion and basing things off of my initial walkthrough and the vibes that I pick up myself. That's kind of the approach I take when I investigate.
What do you think happens when we die? What do you think happens to our soul? Now that you've been doing this, you've encountered things. Give me a breakdown of what do you think happens to our soul, and if everything you encounter while paranormal investigating was a former living person or a living animal, or is it something from maybe somewhere else?
I would say at this point, in my experience, um, there are a lot of Buddhist concepts that seem to kind of coincide with how things work. As much as I used to believe, okay, we die, there's nothing. That used to be my stance. I used to be completely agnostic, despite being raised in a Christian Presbyterian, home for years.
Yep, same here.
Um, I think I was just almost hoping that it would just all end because this world seems to be just based in a lot of suffering. That's how we learn, that's how we love, that gives our life meaning on this human plane. So that kind of coincides with a lot of Buddhist beliefs where there are these levels, and ultimately you want to reach some kind of enlightenment, or perhaps you come back and you do it a different way and you do it better. Um, or, and that kind of goes hand in hand with like traditional African religions where you die, you come back as a spirit, but maybe when people contact you in those ceremonies as a spirit, you can do good or bad. You yourself are not evil. You can choose to do good or bad, but the spirits are required, to do good if they want to progress out of the plane they're in, or they can choose to act up and be naughty. And when someone comes to consult them, perform that curse on on the person, but they aren't going to progress in their spiritual plane. They're going to be stuck there the more they do that. Do you know what I mean? Like there's
Hmm.
different levels.
Yeah, you
So
still have free will, but you're going to
right,
suffer the consequences,
right,
you know.
right. So that's kind of my stance on it now.
So do you think every entity that you reached or come across was a former living person, or do you think there could be, like, I don't want to use the term demon because I hate that, but
Yeah,
do
I
you,
don't really buy into that perspective at all. I don't even, yeah, that's not even in my vocabulary, honestly, when it comes to paranormal investigations.
what's the most fun experience that you've had paranormal investigating? Whether it be because the place was just super active or because something really positive came out of it, or maybe you saw like a full-bodied apparition for the first time or something like that. What's one of the ones
Oh,
that really
that's
stand out
that's
to
an
you?
easy one. That's got to be the old jail at St. Augustine. Very very recently as well. I was with my wife, who decided to do the midnight investigation there with me, and it was the first time I did my own Estes session.
Okay.
So it was just wild too. Like, I'm so glad I got to do it with her because I could really trust her. You have to have a level of trust when you perform that experiment, I think, especially being so vulnerable with spirits and things. It was just wild. That place is wild, and we didn't even investigate half of it. But we went in, and after the initial walkthrough, I decided to go back to the room where I initially got this kind of tingling up my right arm. And it happened to be the first floor sheriff's office area. And in that area, there are some original items. So his original typewriter, because it's a museum, so they have
Hmm.
all that stuff in there. His original guns, his original desk, and they had a paranormal tripwire set up in a circle. with a chair. So I was like, oh, perfect. This is where we're going to do the Estes. So I get set up. I'm the receiver. So I put on those noise isolation headphones. I plug into the spirit box. And my wife starts asking questions around the room. Of course, I can't hear her. For the first about 8 to 10 minutes or so, I'm completely silent. I filmed it. Completely silent. And when she gets over to the typewriter and desk and starts talking about the typewriter and saying, oh, this is a nice typewriter. Can you type something for me? Is this, where the treasure is? There's a legend that there's treasure hidden in it or something. And it's a very heavy typewriter. Of course, I don't know that she's asking about that at that time. And I start to hear in the spirit box typing, not static, big, chunky, noisy typing, like from an old typewriter. And I wait to say anything at first because I'm like, am I really hearing this like sound effect? And as she's asking, can you type us something? Can you type us something? I say, I hear typing. I hear typing sound. And my wife goes, she looks at me like kind of taken aback. And she goes, oh, nice. Thank you. Can you type us some more? Can you type more? And I start to say, it's getting faster, louder, lots. Typing is getting faster. And that was just a really crazy, wild experience because I'd had no idea that she was asking about the typewriter or anything in that room at the time. I have no way to explain that. From here, I'm wondering, I wish I could have recorded that spirit box session. There are some that you can record on. This one I couldn't. Because I'm wondering if it was actually coming through or if I was hearing it, with some kind of psi experience, like unique to whatever was communicating. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would have been really great to know. But in that same session after that, she starts to ask some more questions. I'm quiet for a while. And she asks, is there a better place for us to talk to you? And I go, yeah. And she goes, oh, where is it better to talk to you? Is upstairs better to talk to you? And I don't respond, but I had placed cat balls around the room on the floor. And one of the cat balls in the corner, no one's walking around, it's completely still, starts to blink to the upstairs. Is the upstairs better? And we missed that at the time. We saw that going back in footage. Funny enough, we did after that session go immediately upstairs to the room upstairs, and we had even more activity with the cat ball lighting up, with the REM pod going crazy in our questioning. At one point, we had the REM pod go off, then the cat ball sitting on a desk next to it. Then a voice comes through on my spirit box, and then the camera that's filming the whole thing falls off the desk. That was in the upstairs session. It was just, I don't know how to explain that. That place is extremely active. That's the old jail, St. Augustine.
Now, is that the oldest jail in Florida?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, because I know you said the other one was the second oldest. I thought it was that one in St. Augustine, but I
Yes.
wasn't 100% sure.
Yep. Oldest jail.
So I think if I remember correctly from my tour there, it's been years ago, but I think they said the same people who designed, I guess, the cell door lockingisms were the same ones from Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Yep. Yes. They built, yeah, they had a big hand in the construction of the jail too. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. What what's the best way for listeners if they want to follow what you got going on? Because I know you have a very active Instagram page, and then you've also got a YouTube page. Tell the listeners how they can find out what's going on with Ghost Story Girl.
Yeah, so they can follow on Instagram. My handle on there is at Ghost Story Girl. It's the same for YouTube at Ghost Story Girl. I am on TikTok as well. That's Ghost Story Girl Florida. And I also have a research project that I kicked off. I founded Project Haunted, and you can find that at project.haunted. I'm in the process of designing an experiment for investigators to kind of get on the same page and try to study this thing, this stuff that's going on in a scientific way. So hopefully that'll be up and running soon.
That's awesome. Ashlie, it was awesome having you on today. I'm glad you were able to take some time to be on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I had fun.
Good. Same here. Everybody go follow Ghost Story Girl. Like I said, Instagram is where she is the most active. That's a good place to start, but check out the YouTube page as well. All right, guys, that wraps it up for us this week.
Hope you guys have a blessed week. We love y'all.